As a joke, they tied the paralyzed Apache girl to the rancher's mailbox, but he took her in end. Their voices echoed across the empty fields, carrying the kind of careless energy that often comes with youth. They were the kind of boys who did not yet understand the weight of their actions, who found humor in situations that required thought and sensitivity. Their laughter was sharp and high, bouncing off the wooden fences and the small houses that dotted the town. Among them, there was a restless energy, a sense of daring that made them look for trouble where none existed. That morning, their mischief would go too far. In the shade of a large oak tree near the main road, they spotted her. She was small and fragile, with dark hair that fell across her face, her eyes wide and uncertain. Her body was weak and paralyzed from an accident that had happened long before, an accident that had changed her life completely. She had always been shy, withdrawn, and careful not to draw attention to herself, and yet that morning, her quiet presence became a target. The boys whispered to each other, their plan forming with reckless thoughtlessness. What if they tied her to the rancher's mailbox just for a joke? It would be funny, they thought. A prank, harmless enough to them in the moment. As they approached, their laughter grew louder and the girl's eyes widened in fear. She tried to move away, but her limited strength made it almost impossible. The boys surrounded her, their voices a mixture of teasing and excitement. One of them grabbed her small arm gently but firmly, not realizing, or perhaps not caring, how frightening this must be for her. Another looped a piece of rope around her, securing it carefully to ensure she could not move. The rope was rough against her skin, and the sun warmed her exposed arms uncomfortably. She trembled, both from fear and from the unfamiliar sensation of being bound in such a way. The rancher's mailbox stood a few yards away, its post sun-bleached and old. He was known in the town for being quiet, reserved, and fair, a man who had lived most of his life tending to the land and the animals on his ranch. His home was modest, built from weathered wood, with a simple stone chimney that puffed smoke in the mornings. He usually kept to himself, preferring the company of his animals over people, but he had a reputation for honesty and a strong sense of justice. That morning, he happened to be walking to the fence line to check on the horses, whistling softly, unaware of the small disaster about to unfold in front of him. When the boys reached the mailbox, they placed the girl there, tying her carefully but without thought of how uncomfortable or frightening it might be. They stepped back, laughing and giving each other high fives, certain they had pulled off the perfect prank. The girl's eyes were filled with confusion and helplessness. She didn't understand why this was happening. She had no words to protest, no strength to free herself. Her small body pressed against the rough wood of the mailbox, and she felt the sting of the rope cutting lightly into her wrists. Her heart raced, not from excitement, but from fear. The rancher noticed them immediately. His eyes narrowed as he took in the scene, not understanding at first why a young girl was tied to his mailbox. He could hear the laughter of the boys, and his calm demeanor vanished in an instant. His mind raced, and he felt a surge of anger, not at the girl, who had done nothing wrong, but at the reckless cruelty of the boys. He strode forward, his boots crunching on the dry dirt, his voice low but firm. "What do you think you're doing?" he demanded, and the laughter faltered. The boys looked at him, unsure how to respond. The prank had been meant for amusement, but now, under the rancher's gaze, it felt heavy and wrong. The rancher knelt beside the girl, who flinched at the sudden movement, unsure whether this man was friend or foe. He spoke to her softly. "It's okay, I'm here. You're safe now." His hands were steady as he began to untie the rough rope, each knot carefully loosened so as not to hurt her more. The boys stood silently, the gravity of the moment sinking in. The girl's face, wet with the beginnings of tears, looked at him with cautious relief. She had not expected anyone to come to her aid, not like this. Most people had ignored her, avoided her, or whispered behind her back. Yet here was a man who did not hesitate, who acted without a second thought to protect her. Once free, she tried to stand, but her legs would not cooperate. She wobbled and almost fell, but the rancher caught her gently, holding her close enough to offer support but careful not to be overbearing. He guided her to a shaded area near the edge of his property, where the grass was soft and the air smelled faintly of wildflowers and dust. He asked her name, speaking slowly and kindly. "What's your name, young one?" she whispered it, her voice barely audible. The rancher nodded, committing it to memory. He asked simple questions, letting her respond at her own pace, never rushing, never forcing her. The boys, ashamed and uncomfortable, began to scatter. The laughter that had filled the morning air was gone, replaced by a heavy silence. The rancher called after them, his voice firm, "Go on now and remember this. Treat people with care. This isn't a joke." They hesitated, then slowly disappeared down the dusty road, leaving the rancher and the girl alone. For a moment the quiet returned, broken only by the soft rustle of leaves in the wind and the distant lowing of cattle. The rancher looked at her, noticing the exhaustion in her eyes and the way her body slumped slightly despite his support. He knew that leaving her here alone was not an option. She had nowhere safe to go, no one to care for her in a town that often ignored those who were different or vulnerable. Without hesitation, he offered her a simple solution, his home. "Come with me," he said gently. "I'll help you. You won't have to stay out here alone." She hesitated, unsure at first. The world had not been kind to her and trust did not come easily. But something in the rancher's calm, steady presence made her believe, even for a moment, that he could be trusted. With careful movements he helped her walk, or rather, slowly shuffle toward his home. Each step was a challenge, but he was patient, allowing her to rest whenever she needed it. He spoke softly, telling her about the simple comforts of his home, a warm fire, soft blankets, and a small room where she could rest without fear. His words were kind and deliberate, each one building a sense of safety and security around her. She began to realize that not everyone was cruel, that sometimes unexpected kindness could change the course of a day or even a life. By the time they reached the rancher's home, the sun had climbed higher in the sky, casting warm light across the wooden porch. The house was modest but inviting, with smoke curling from the chimney and the faint scent of fresh bread or stew lingering in the air. The rancher guided her to a chair near the fireplace and settled her gently, offering her water and a small meal. She ate slowly, unsure of how to act or what to say. The rancher did not rush her, nor did he demand explanations. He simply provided comfort, letting her know, in every small action, that she was safe and valued. As she ate, she began to relax, the tension in her shoulders slowly easing. She looked at him with gratitude, her eyes reflecting a cautious hope that perhaps, for the first time in a long while, she could feel secure. The rancher noticed the change, offering a gentle smile. It was a quiet, unspoken acknowledgement that sometimes the right action at the right time could make all the difference in the world. He knew that the boy's prank had been cruel, but he also knew that he had the power to turn a moment of fear into a story of care, to show that kindness could exist even in a harsh, dusty world. That morning, what began as a cruel joke ended with an act of compassion that would shape both of their lives forever. The girl, once bound and helpless, now sat with a sense of safety she had never known. The rancher, who had witnessed cruelty firsthand, felt a deep satisfaction in having acted with integrity and empathy. Neither would forget the morning's events, the fear, the laughter, the tension, and the eventual relief, but for different reasons. One remembered the harshness of the world, the other the possibility of change. And in that quiet house on the edge of town, a bond began to form that neither time nor circumstance could easily break. The girl had never been inside a house like the rancher's. The walls smelled faintly of wood polish and smoke from the fireplace, a scent that was both strange and comforting. Her eyes roamed over the simple furniture, the small table with neatly stacked dishes, the warm blankets folded carefully on a wooden chair. She felt nervous, unsure of what to expect in this new environment. People had often stared at her, avoided her, or whispered behind her back, and this sudden kindness was unfamiliar and almost frightening. The rancher, noticing her hesitation, spoke gently. "It's all right," he said. "You don't have to do anything you don't want to, just rest for now." He guided her to a chair near the fire, helping her sit so that she was comfortable. The warmth of the flames eased some of the tension in her muscles. She could feel the safety in the rancher's presence, the quiet patience in his every movement. He didn't rush her, didn't ask questions about why she had been left tied to the mailbox. He simply offered her the basic comfort of safety and care, and for the girl, that was more than she had received from most people in her life. After a moment, he brought a small plate of food, simple but nourishing. Bread, some fruit, and a little cheese sat on the plate. She hesitated, unsure if she should eat. Her body was weak and she had little appetite from the stress of the morning, but the rancher encouraged her softly. "You need strength," he said. "You've had a hard morning. It's all right to eat." She nodded slowly, taking a bite. The taste was simple, but it warmed her body and gave her a small sense of normalcy. He watched her carefully, making sure she was comfortable, making sure she knew she could trust him. While she ate, he began to talk quietly about his home and life on the ranch. He told her about the animals he cared for, the fields he tended, and the routines that filled his days. His words were calm and deliberate, not overwhelming, and he allowed her to respond in small ways, asking questions if she wanted. She was surprised at how kind and patient he was, how he seemed to value her presence rather than see it as a burden. She asked a few questions, her voice soft and hesitant at first, about the animals and the land. He answered each carefully, and she found herself smiling faintly, something that hadn't happened in a long time. The rancher noticed that the girl's eyes were tired, and he suggested she rest. He guided her carefully to a small room at the back of the house. It was simple, with a single bed, clean blankets, and a small window that let in the morning light. The room was quiet, safe, and hers to use. She sat on the edge of the bed, hesitant at first, unsure if it was okay to accept such comfort. The rancher knelt beside her, speaking softly. "You can stay here as long as you need. No one will hurt you here." His words were gentle, but they carried a weight that made her believe him. For the first time in many months, perhaps even years, she felt the warmth of being cared for. She lay back on the bed, the blankets soft and comforting against her skin. Her body relaxed slightly, though she was still cautious. She thought about the mailbox, about the boys' cruel laughter, and about how quickly the rancher had stepped in to help. She felt a mixture of relief and wonder. Someone had actually cared enough to act, to put her safety above their own convenience or judgment. It was a new feeling, fragile and unfamiliar but welcome. The rancher spent the next few hours with her, helping her adjust to the simple routines of the house. He showed her where the water pitcher was, where the blankets were kept, and how to call him if she needed assistance. Every action was thoughtful and deliberate. He didn't rush her, didn't demand that she learn everything at once. Instead, he allowed her to move at her own pace, offering help whenever she struggled. The girl began to feel a sense of independence, small as it was, and it gave her a quiet pride she hadn't experienced before. He also introduced her to the small tasks she could manage. Simple chores like folding blankets, watering the small garden by the window, or feeding a few chickens became ways for her to contribute to the household. Each task was a small success, and the rancher praised her gently for every effort. "You're doing well," he said after she carefully poured water for the plants. "See, you can manage more than you think." She smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes, feeling proud that she could be useful despite her limitations. As the day passed, the rancher shared stories of his own life. He spoke of hardships he had faced, of storms that had destroyed fields, and of lonely nights when he had worried about the animals or the house. He spoke honestly but without sadness, showing that struggle was a part of life but not something to fear. The girl listened, fascinated by his experiences. She realized that even people who seemed strong and self-reliant had faced difficulties. His stories were not just entertainment. They were lessons in resilience and patience, showing her that life could be challenging but also rewarding. Gradually, she began to open up, telling him a little about herself. She spoke about her accident, about the difficulty of moving through the world in a body that did not obey her as she wished. She spoke quietly, carefully choosing her words, unsure if anyone would understand. The rancher listened without interrupting, nodding and acknowledging her words. "I can't imagine how hard it has been," he said gently, "but I can help you now. You're not alone anymore." His words were simple, but they carried a sense of commitment that reassured her. By evening, the girl felt a small but significant shift in her emotions. The fear and anxiety that had weighed heavily in the morning had begun to ease. She felt a sense of security she had not known before, a realization that kindness existed even in unexpected places. The rancher prepared a modest dinner and they ate together quietly. There was no pressure to speak, no expectation beyond sharing the meal and the space. It was peaceful, a contrast to the chaos and cruelty of the morning. After dinner, the rancher helped her to the bed again. He brought a small lantern to light the room, ensuring she would not feel afraid in the dark. "If you need anything, just call," he said. "I'll be nearby." She nodded, grateful for the reassurance. As he left the room, closing the door softly behind him, she felt a sense of calm she had never experienced before. The world outside was uncertain and often cruel, but inside this modest house, she had found safety and care. That night as she lay on the bed, the girl thought about the events of the day. She remembered the boy's laughter, the rough rope cutting into her wrists, and the sharp fear that had gripped her. And then she thought about the rancher, his steady hands, his calm voice, and the warmth of his home. She realized that the world could be both cruel and kind, sometimes in the same morning. And in that understanding, she found a fragile hope, a belief that perhaps life could still offer moments of kindness and care, even when it seemed impossible. For the rancher, the day had been a quiet reminder of the importance of action and empathy. He had seen cruelty, he had seen helplessness, but he had also seen the difference that one person's compassion could make. By simply acting, by choosing to help rather than ignore, he had changed the course of a young girl's life. He understood that the work ahead would not be easy. She would need care, patience, and guidance, but he was willing to give all of that. The knowledge that he could make a positive difference gave him quiet satisfaction. As the night deepened, the fire in the hearth burned low, casting a warm glow over the room. The girl slept fitfully at first, her dreams filled with fragments of fear and relief. But gradually, the warmth of the home, the presence of someone who cared, and the soft light of the lantern allowed her to rest more peacefully. Outside, the town slept unaware of the small miracle that had taken place at the rancher's home, unaware that a moment of cruelty had been transformed into an act of hope and care. By the time the first light of dawn crept through the window, the girl was awake, sitting on the edge of the bed and watching the shadows shift with the morning sun. She felt stronger than she had in a long time, not just in body but in spirit. The rancher entered the room quietly, smiling at her. "Good morning," he said simply. "Ready for a new day?" She nodded, feeling a small spark of confidence. She did not know what the day would bring, but she knew that, for now, she had a safe place, a friend, and a chance to experience life in a way she had never thought possible. That morning marked the beginning of a new chapter. The girl, once tied helplessly to a mailbox as part of a cruel joke, had been brought into a home where she could find comfort, care, and hope. And the rancher, who had acted without hesitation, knew that the bond they were forming would change both of their lives. In the quiet moments of a simple home, amidst the smell of wood smoke and the warmth of a fire, two lives had intersected in a way that neither would forget. And though challenges would come, they now faced them together, with trust, patience, and compassion guiding every step. Word of the morning's incident spread through the small town like wildfire. The story of a young Apache girl, paralyzed and tied to the rancher's mailbox as a cruel joke, traveled quickly from neighbor to neighbor. Some spoke with concern, others with gossiping curiosity, and a few with judgment. People whispered in doorways, exchanged knowing glances on the streets, and shook their heads at the boys who had carried out the prank. It was not a large town, and news traveled fast. The unusual event had stirred a mixture of emotions: shock, pity, amusement, and criticism. But the one thing most agreed upon was that it had left an impression. Among the townspeople, opinions were divided. Some criticized the rancher for taking the girl into his home, saying he was interfering where it wasn't necessary, that the girl should be sent to her family or the authorities. Others quietly praised his actions, admiring the courage it took to step in and help someone in need, especially in a world that often turned a blind eye. Some older women in the town murmured about kindness and responsibility, while some men shrugged, unsure whether to support the rancher or distance themselves from controversy. It was a delicate balance of judgment and curiosity, with every conversation circling back to the morning's event. Despite the varying opinions, the rancher remained calm and focused. He did not concern himself with gossip or judgment. His priority was simple: the girl's well-being. He continued to help her adjust to life inside his home, paying careful attention to her physical needs and emotional comfort. He noticed that even small tasks were significant victories for her. Pouring water into a cup without spilling it, feeding the chickens with careful precision, and folding blankets with care. Each of these tasks became a building block of her confidence. For the rancher, these moments were quietly rewarding. He understood that patience and steady encouragement were more valuable than any words of praise. The girl, for her part, began to notice the slow changes in her own feelings and abilities. The fear and uncertainty that had dominated her mornings gradually gave way to a cautious curiosity about her surroundings. She asked questions about the ranch, about the animals, about the land that stretched far beyond the house. The rancher answered each with care, explaining everything in simple, clear words. He spoke of the horses that grazed near the fence, of the chickens that wandered freely in the yard, and of the small garden he tended carefully every day. Each story, each explanation, helped her feel more connected to the world around her, giving her a sense of purpose that had been missing for a long time. The townspeople, watching from a distance, slowly began to see the effect of the rancher's kindness. Some came forward to offer small assistance. A neighbor brought fresh eggs from her own chickens, another offered a basket of bread, and a few others contributed blankets and warm clothing. These small gestures, though modest, carried deep meaning. They signaled that even in a town often ruled by routine and judgment, compassion could spread. The girl noticed the care others were offering, and it reinforced her growing belief that she could trust people and find safety beyond the walls of the rancher's home. As days turned into weeks, the rancher and the girl settled into a rhythm. The mornings were quiet, filled with simple chores and soft conversation. The afternoons were spent exploring the land around the house, with the rancher guiding her carefully along paths she could manage. He showed her the best spots to watch the sunset, where the wildflowers grew thick and colorful, and the edges of the creek where the water was calm and shallow. Every outing, however small, became an adventure for the girl, a chance to experience the beauty and rhythm of life in a way she had not before. One afternoon, as they were tending the garden together, the girl looked up at the rancher. Do you think I'll ever be able to do things like other children? She asked softly, her voice tinged with worry. The rancher smiled gently, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. You are already doing more than most people would, he said. It doesn't matter what others can do. What matters is that you try, that you learn, and that you grow. Every step you take is important, no matter how small. His words were simple, but they carried the weight of wisdom and experience, and the girl felt her chest swell with a quiet pride. The girl began to take more initiative in her own life. She started learning to maneuver around the house more confidently, discovering small ways to manage tasks independently. The rancher adapted the home to her needs, building small ramps and adjusting furniture so she could reach things more easily. He created tools that helped her with feeding animals, watering plants, and even small cooking tasks. Each adaptation was a reminder that life could be made more manageable with creativity, care, and perseverance. The girl felt empowered, realizing that her limitations did not define her. At the same time, the rancher worked to help the girl feel socially included. He invited neighbors to the ranch for simple gatherings, creating opportunities for her to meet others in a safe and supportive environment. Some townspeople were hesitant at first, unsure how to interact with a young girl with physical challenges. But the rancher encouraged gentle conversation, allowing them to see her not as a burden, but as a person with thoughts, feelings, and a growing confidence. Slowly, the girl began to smile and laugh around others, her presence bringing a quiet light to gatherings that had previously been ordinary and routine. Despite the positive changes, challenges remained. There were days when the girl felt frustrated by her body, days when she struggled with small tasks that others completed easily. The rancher met each challenge with patience and encouragement, never showing disappointment or frustration. It's all right, he would say. Every day is a new chance to try again. You are learning, and that is what matters. His consistent support gave her the courage to continue, to try again when she felt she could not. Over time, the girl began to internalize his words, understanding that progress was measured not by perfection, but by persistence and effort. The bond between the girl and the rancher deepened with each passing day. They shared stories, laughter, and quiet moments of reflection. The rancher taught her about the stars at night, pointing out constellations and sharing the legends behind them. They spoke about the seasons, about planting and harvesting, about the patience required to care for both land and animals. The girl listened attentively, absorbing knowledge and wisdom she had never experienced before. She realized that life, though challenging, could also be full of beauty, learning, and connection. One afternoon, while the rancher was fixing a fence, the girl explored a small path near the garden. She had been nervous at first, but she discovered that with careful steps and determination, she could move farther than she had thought possible. The rancher watched from a distance, offering guidance when needed, but allowing her to explore independently. Her eyes shone with excitement and pride, and he nodded quietly to himself, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. Moments like these reinforced his belief that patience, kindness, and encouragement could unlock potential in ways no punishment or judgment ever could. Word of the girl's progress eventually reached the rest of the town. People who had once whispered and gossiped began to notice the changes. They saw her confidence grow, her laughter become more frequent, and her presence more assured. Some were inspired by the rancher's dedication, seeing that compassion and patience could bring real change. Slowly, attitudes began to shift. The girl was no longer seen only as someone weak or helpless. She was recognized for her determination, her courage, and her growing independence. The town began to see her as a person, not just a victim, and the impact of the rancher's actions rippled outward. Even the boys who had tied her to the mailbox began to change. At first, they were embarrassed and ashamed when they saw her thriving under the rancher's care. They avoided her at first, unsure how to act. But gradually, they observed her confidence, the pride in her accomplishments, and the kindness of the rancher. Some even began to offer small gestures of apology, bringing flowers from the fields or helping with minor chores. Though their actions could not erase the past, they showed that people could learn and grow when faced with the consequences of their behavior. Through it all, the rancher continued to focus on the girl's well-being. He understood that life would continue to present challenges, but he also knew that with guidance, care, and love, she could face them. Each day, she became more confident, more independent, and more capable. And with each small victory, the bond between them grew stronger. They shared a quiet understanding that life was not always fair, but kindness and patience could make a profound difference, and that together they could face the world with courage. By the end of the third month, the girl had settled into a comfortable routine. She woke each morning with a sense of purpose, eager to take on small tasks and explore the ranch. She laughed more freely, her eyes reflecting a newfound hope and confidence. The rancher watched her with pride, knowing that his decision to act that morning at the mailbox had transformed not only her life, but also his own. Their lives had intertwined in ways neither could have predicted, creating a story of resilience, compassion, and the quiet power of human kindness. The town, too, had begun to change. The story of the rancher and the girl became a quiet lesson in empathy and understanding. People began to treat one another with more care, to see value in actions motivated by kindness rather than judgment. The girl, once the target of a cruel joke, had become a symbol of what was possible when patience and compassion guided decisions. And for the rancher, every smile, every small success, every moment of laughter was a reminder that one person's willingness to act could create ripples of change far beyond what anyone could imagine. The days at the ranch continued, each one bringing new experiences, new challenges, and new moments of connection. The girl had settled into a routine, yet each day still held surprises. She awoke to the sound of birds singing and the soft rustle of leaves in the morning breeze. The rancher was always there, already tending to the animals or preparing breakfast, and he greeted her with a calm smile that had become familiar and comforting. Slowly she began to feel that this small home, surrounded by open fields and quiet paths, was truly hers, a place where she could be herself without fear or judgment. The rancher encouraged her to explore more of the land, to move beyond the garden and the small paths near the house. He guided her along safe trails, teaching her how to navigate uneven terrain, how to balance herself, and how to anticipate obstacles. The girl learned to trust her own strength, however limited it might be, and the rancher's patience allowed her to grow more confident with each outing. They spent hours walking together, talking about the animals, the changing weather, and the secrets of the land. The girl listened intently, soaking up every detail, every story, feeling herself becoming part of the world in a way she had never experienced before. The bond between them deepened as they worked together on the ranch. The rancher taught her to feed the chickens and care for the horses, adjusting tasks so she could participate fully. Even chores that seemed simple became opportunities for learning and growth. She learned to water the plants, gather eggs, and organize supplies. Each success gave her a sense of accomplishment, a reminder that she could contribute meaningfully despite her physical limitations. The rancher praised her gently, encouraging her to take pride in her work. "You're doing wonderfully," he would say. "Every day you are stronger and more capable." One afternoon, as they were repairing a fence near the edge of the property, the girl paused, looking out over the fields. The sun was beginning to dip toward the horizon, casting long shadows and bathing the land in a warm, golden light. She felt a sense of awe at the beauty around her. "It's so big," she said softly. "Everything feels endless." The rancher smiled. "It is," he said. "And it can be scary sometimes, but also wonderful. You've already faced a lot and you're learning to navigate it, That's something to be proud of. She nodded, taking in his words, feeling a quiet strength rising within her. The rancher also worked to teach her skills that would give her greater independence. He showed her how to prepare simple meals, how to handle small tools safely, and how to care for herself in ways that her limited mobility allowed. Each lesson was patient and careful, never rushed, always encouraging. The girl practiced diligently, motivated by the rancher's belief in her abilities. She began to understand that her limitations did not define her, that she could learn, adapt, and grow even in the face of challenges. Her confidence blossomed, and with it, a sense of hope that had been absent for many years. Evenings were often spent by the fireplace, the girl wrapped in a warm blanket while the rancher tended the fire and prepared dinner. They shared stories and memories, laughing quietly at small anecdotes and talking about the world beyond the ranch. The rancher shared his own struggles and triumphs, teaching her that life was full of both difficulties and joys. She began to open up about her past, speaking hesitantly at first, then with growing confidence, sharing her thoughts, feelings, and dreams. The rancher listened without judgment, offering guidance and understanding, helping her to see her own strength and resilience. The girl's laughter began to fill the house more often, a sound that was both new and healing. It was a laughter born of small victories, of understanding, and of connection. She learned to enjoy simple pleasures, the smell of fresh bread, the warmth of sunlight on her face, the gentle touch of the rancher's hand when he steadied her. These moments became the fabric of her days, each one reinforcing the sense of security and belonging she had never known before. The rancher, in turn, found joy in seeing her grow and thrive, proud of every step she took and every challenge she overcame. As the girl's confidence grew, so did her curiosity about the world beyond the ranch. The rancher took her to nearby streams, to the edge of the forest, and to the hills that overlooked the town. Each journey was carefully planned, each step guided, but always allowing her a measure of independence. She began to understand the rhythms of nature, to observe the patterns of the seasons, and to marvel at the animals she had once only seen from a distance. The rancher encouraged her to ask questions, to explore, and to dream. Slowly, she realized that life could hold beauty, wonder, and possibility, even in the midst of her challenges. The community, too, continued to notice the girl's transformation. People who had once whispered and gossiped began to treat her with respect and kindness. Some brought small gifts, flowers, food, or handmade items, to show support. Others offered help with chores or accompanied her on short walks, making her feel included and valued. The rancher welcomed these gestures, encouraging her to accept kindness from others while also teaching her how to assert herself when needed. She began to understand that relationships could be built on trust, respect, and mutual care, and that the world was capable of more compassion than she had previously believed. The girl and the rancher also faced challenges together. There were days when she struggled with her physical limitations, when simple tasks became frustrating, and when old fears resurfaced. The rancher met each challenge with patience, offering encouragement and support. "It's all right to struggle," he told her. "Every time you try, you grow stronger. You are learning, and that is what matters." His calm, steady presence helped her to face her fears, to persevere, and to see that setbacks were simply part of the journey. Over time, she learned to approach difficulties with resilience and determination, understanding that persistence and effort were more important than perfection. One particularly memorable day, the rancher decided to teach her how to ride a horse, something she had never imagined possible. At first, she was terrified. Her body trembled and she doubted her own ability. The rancher guided her gently, helping her onto the horse, supporting her as she gripped the reins and adjusted her balance. Slowly, the horse began to walk, then trot, under the rancher's careful supervision. The girl's fear gradually gave way to exhilaration. She laughed, her voice ringing with joy, and felt a sense of freedom she had never experienced. It was a moment of triumph, a reminder that courage and support could unlock possibilities she had once thought beyond reach. Even in quiet moments, the girl's growth was evident. She learned to express herself more confidently, to communicate her needs and desires, and to interact with others with increasing ease. She shared her thoughts and feelings with the rancher openly, trusting him as a mentor, guide, and friend. He, in turn, responded with understanding, patience, and encouragement, reinforcing her self-esteem and sense of agency. Together, they built a life filled with routines, responsibilities, learning, and joy. The rancher provided stability and care, while the girl brought curiosity, energy, and a growing sense of independence. Over time, their bond became deeper than mere friendship or mentorship. It was a partnership built on trust, respect, and mutual care. The girl came to rely on the rancher not just for physical support, but for guidance, encouragement, and emotional security. The rancher, in turn, found meaning and fulfillment in nurturing her growth, proud of her accomplishments and inspired by her resilience. Together, they created a home where kindness, patience, and understanding shaped every action, and where the girl could flourish in ways she had never imagined possible. The days at the ranch taught the girl important lessons about life, strength, and compassion. She learned that setbacks were natural, that patience was essential, and that courage was not the absence of fear but the willingness to act despite it. She discovered that trust could be built slowly, that relationships required care and attention, and that love could take many forms, including the quiet, steady support of someone who believed in her. The rancher's guidance and unwavering care helped her internalize these lessons, shaping her into a confident, capable, and hopeful young person. By the end of this chapter in their lives, the girl had transformed in remarkable ways. She moved with greater confidence, spoke with clarity and assurance, and approached challenges with resilience and determination. Her laughter became a frequent, joyous sound in the house, and her presence brought warmth and energy to the ranch. The rancher watched with pride and satisfaction, knowing that his decision to act that morning had not only saved her from fear and neglect, but had also allowed her to grow into a stronger, happier, and more independent person. The ranch, once a quiet, ordinary place, had become a home filled with learning, growth, and connection. The bond between the girl and the rancher was a testament to the power of patience, empathy, and consistent care. It showed that even in the face of fear, cruelty, and adversity, life could be transformed through kindness and understanding. And as the sun set over the fields, casting long shadows and bathing the land in golden light, both the girl and the rancher knew that together they had created a life of hope, resilience, and lasting connection, a life that would continue to grow stronger with each passing day. Time passed slowly but surely at the ranch, and the girl had grown in ways that no one could have predicted. She moved with confidence, learned to manage daily tasks, and developed a curiosity about the world that had been suppressed for years. The rancher continued to guide her patiently, supporting her growth while giving her space to explore her independence. Every day was a lesson, every moment an opportunity for her to discover her own strength. The small house that once offered only shelter had become a place of learning, laughter, and hope. By now, the townspeople had grown accustomed to seeing the girl at the ranch. Some continued to gossip, but most had come to respect her and the rancher. People noticed her confidence, her determination, and her growing ability to take care of herself. They saw that the rancher's guidance had helped her thrive, and slowly they began to admire him as well. It was clear to anyone who observed them that their relationship was built on trust, kindness, and respect, and that it had transformed not only the girl's life, but the environment around them. The girl had started to dream again, something she had not done since before her accident. She imagined traveling beyond the town, learning more about the world, and finding ways to help others who faced similar challenges. The rancher encouraged these dreams, reminding her that her strength and determination were her greatest assets. "You can do more than you think," he often said. "Your spirit is strong and your heart is capable of great things. Never forget that." His words became a guiding force for her, a steady reminder that she could achieve whatever she set her mind to. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, the girl sat on the porch watching the sky turn shades of pink and gold. The rancher joined her quietly, placing a hand on her shoulder in gentle reassurance. "You've come a long way," he said softly. "I am proud of you." The girl turned to him, her eyes reflecting gratitude and warmth. "I couldn't have done it without you," she replied. "You gave me a chance when no one else did. You showed me that I can be more than my fears and my limits." The rancher smiled, touched by her words. "You had it in you all along," he said. "I only helped you see it." Their daily life continued with quiet routines and small joys. The girl helped with feeding the animals, tending the garden, and preparing simple meals. She learned to anticipate the needs of the house and the ranch, feeling a sense of pride in her contributions. The rancher continued to adapt tasks to her abilities, but he also encouraged her to push boundaries gently, teaching her that growth often comes from stepping beyond comfort zones. Each day was an opportunity to learn, to improve, and to experience life fully. As the girl grew more confident, the rancher began to introduce her to the wider community in more meaningful ways. They visited the town together, attending small gatherings and social events. At first, she felt nervous and self-conscious, unsure of how others would perceive her. But the rancher's calm presence and quiet encouragement gave her the courage to participate. She found that people treated her with kindness and respect, and gradually she began to form friendships. She laughed, shared stories, and felt the warmth of human connection in ways she had never experienced before. One particularly memorable afternoon, the girl helped a neighbor carry water to the garden, managing the task carefully with the rancher's guidance. The neighbor complimented her on her efforts, and she felt a rush of pride. For the first time, she realized that her abilities mattered, that she could contribute meaningfully to the world around her. The rancher watched silently, a quiet smile on his face, knowing that her confidence was no longer fragile, but growing stronger with each success. These moments reinforced the idea that patience, guidance, and consistent care could unlock potential in ways that no amount of criticism or pity ever could. Evenings at the ranch were filled with warmth and comfort. The girl and the rancher would sit by the fireplace, talking about their day, sharing stories, and sometimes simply enjoying the quiet presence of each other. They reflected on the progress she had made, the challenges she had overcome, and the opportunities that lay ahead. The rancher encouraged her to set goals, to envision the kind of life she wanted, and to take steps toward achieving it. He reminded her that courage was not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act despite it, a lesson she carried with her in every part of her life. Over time, the girl developed a strong sense of empathy and compassion for others. She began to notice those in the town who struggled, who were overlooked or ignored. Inspired by the rancher's example, she started small acts of kindness, helping neighbors, caring for animals, and offering support to those in need. These actions, though modest, created ripples of goodwill in the community. People began to see her not only as someone who had overcome challenges, but also as someone capable of inspiring and helping others. Her confidence and kindness became a quiet force, transforming both her life and the town around her. The rancher continued to support her emotional growth as well. He taught her to express her feelings openly, to communicate honestly, and to navigate difficult situations with patience and understanding. They spoke about fear, disappointment, and loss, and about the strength it takes to continue despite challenges. Through these conversations, the girl learned that vulnerability was not a weakness, but a strength. She began to embrace her own emotions, understanding that they were part of what made her human, capable, and resilient. As months turned into years, the girl's transformation became evident to everyone who knew her. She moved with grace, confidence, and purpose. She spoke with clarity and assurance, her laughter a frequent and joyful presence in the rancher's home. The town began to celebrate her achievements, recognizing the growth that had come from patience, care, and guidance. The rancher's decision to act that morning had not only saved her from fear and neglect, but had set her on a path to a fulfilling and meaningful life. The bond between the girl and the rancher had grown into something deeper than friendship. It was a partnership rooted in trust, care, and mutual respect. They had faced challenges together, celebrated victories together, and learned from one another in countless ways. The rancher had provided guidance, support, and stability, while the girl had brought curiosity, energy, and resilience. Together, they had created a life filled with hope, growth, and joy, proving that compassion could overcome fear, prejudice, and cruelty. One sunny morning, as they worked in the garden together, the girl paused and looked around. The flowers were blooming, the animals moved peacefully through the yard, and the house seemed alive with warmth and life. She turned to the rancher, her eyes shining. "I feel strong now," she said. "Not just in my body, but in my heart. I feel like I can face anything." The rancher smiled, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You've always had that strength," he said. "I only helped you see it, and now the world will see it too." The girl's confidence and resilience inspired those around her. People in the town began to approach her for guidance, for friendship, and for support. Her example showed that challenges could be overcome with patience, courage, and kindness. She had become a quiet leader in her community, someone whose presence brought hope and encouragement. And the rancher, who had once acted on a simple instinct to help, watched with pride as the girl grew into a strong, independent, and compassionate young woman. Their life at the ranch had taught both of them profound lessons. The girl had learned that fear could be met with courage, that limitations could be overcome with persistence, and that trust and kindness could change lives. The rancher had learned that a single act of compassion could create ripples of change, transforming not only the life of one person, but the lives of many. Together, they had built a home and a life that was richer, fuller, and more meaningful than either could have imagined. As the sun set on another day, the girl sat on the porch, watching the sky turn shades of orange and pink. The rancher joined her and they sat in comfortable silence, listening to the soft sounds of the evening, the chirping of crickets, the rustle of leaves, the distant call of an owl. The girl leaned slightly against him, feeling the warmth and stability of his presence. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." The rancher smiled, squeezing her shoulder gently. "You did all the hard work," he said. "I only helped you see the strength you already had." In that quiet moment, surrounded by the land that had become her home, the animals she had learned to care for, and the people who had begun to respect and admire her, the girl felt a profound sense of peace. She had been given a second chance at life, a chance to grow, to learn, and to love. And she had taken it fully, transforming herself and the world around her in ways she had never imagined possible. The story of the girl and the rancher became a quiet legend in the town, a reminder that compassion, patience, and guidance could change lives in profound ways. What had begun as a cruel joke, an act of thoughtlessness and fear, had been transformed by kindness and courage into a story of resilience, growth, and hope. The girl, once paralyzed and afraid, had become strong, confident, and independent. The rancher, once a solitary figure, had found purpose, fulfillment, and joy in nurturing her growth. Together, they had created a life of meaning and connection that would endure for years to come. And so, in that small house on the edge of town, among the open fields, the animals, and the quiet community that had slowly embraced them both, The girl and the rancher lived with a deep understanding of the power of kindness, the strength of perseverance, and the beauty of human connection. Their lives, once shaped by fear and cruelty, had been transformed into a story of hope, resilience, and love, a story that would never be forgotten by those who witnessed it.